Welcome to the deep dive. We pull from a whole stack of sources, research, historical context, and of course, the most compelling excerpts to give you the essential understanding of really complex topics.
And today, we're getting into a story that's so much more tragic and ethically tangled than pop culture would have you believe.
We're talking about the genesis of Victor Frankenstein's creation and, well, the absolute ruin that followed.
That's right. Our main source is, of course, Mary Shelley's classic novel, Frankenstein. But we're also looking at various critical adaptations. We're trying to move past the cinematic monster mash.
Right, the bolts in the neck.
Exactly, to really examine the true anatomy of this ruin. So, yes, the scientific hubris at the start, but more importantly, the cascade of personal tragedies that came from Victor's profound negligence.
So our mission for you is to track this collision of two narratives. On one side, you've got Victor's reckless, all-consuming scientific ambition.
And on the other, the creature's harsh, and I mean utterly miserable education in human loathing.
This isn't just a horror story. It's a deep study in the ethics of creation, of responsibility, and just total abandonment.
So let's start at the beginning of that obsession.
Okay, so Victor's journey kicks off in Geneva. He has this idyllic childhood, near Lake Geneva. He's described as having a passionate thirst for knowledge.
But what's so fascinating is where he starts looking for that knowledge. He wasn't looking forward to the future of science.
He was looking backward.
Completely backward. He was totally steeped in what you'd call pre-science. Victor was just devouring the writings of these ancient natural philosophers, Agrippa, Paracelsus, Albertus Magnus.
So alchemists.
Basically, yeah. These guys were focused on mystical searches for things like the elixir of life. He was trying to command nature with incantations, not, equations.
But then the sources all point to this single catastrophic turning point for him at age 15. The accident of the thunderstorm.
It's an incredibly powerful moment. A bolt of lightning just annihilates a magnificent oak tree near his house. Yeah, leaves nothing but a blasted stump. And this was a literal, visceral demonstration of natural power, specifically electrical power.
So that's the spark, literally.
It's the spark. The bolt didn't just burn the tree. It completely shifted Victor's focus away from that vague, mystical stuff toward the cold, measurable, modern power of electricity and galvanism.
And that transition is just crucial. It marks his surrender to modern science. He heads off to the University of Ingolstadt.
And his professors, like Kremp and Waldman, they rightly ridicule his old alchemical readings.
Sure.
But Victor excels. He's now driven by this one singular manic purpose, uncovering the principle of life.
To do that, he has to immerse himself in death. The sources paint this really gruesome picture of him spending days and nights in graveyard vaults and charnel houses.
Just watching decay, analyzing the subtle changes from life to death. And after months of this, he finally has that blinding revelation. He discovers the secret of life itself.
And this is where his ambition gets really interesting, because the actual work, the intricacies of fibers, organs, and arteries was so delicate and difficult.
Right.
And because he wanted to finish it quickly, he made this practical but ultimately grotesque decision.
He decided to make the creature immense.
Huge.
Yeah. He chose to work with large, coarse materials to get it done faster, resulting in a gigantic stature, about 8 feet in height and proportionately broad.
Which tells you everything, right?
Yeah.
His drive to finish the project completely outweighed any care for, well, the being he was creating.
And then comes the moment of animation. It's late November, 1 in the morning, in his Ingolstadt tower room.
Pure terror. That dull yellow eye opens, the creature breathes hard, and it shudders to life.
And Victor's reaction, it's not triumph, it's not joy, it's instantaneous visceral revulsion.
He had planned this beautiful new race, this noble being.
And instead he sees a hideous thing. The description is so deliberate, yellow skin barely covering the muscles and arteries beneath.
And the only beautiful features, the thick black hair and the pearly whiteness of his teeth, they just make everything else look worse.
Exactly. They create this horrid contrast with his watery eyes and straight black lips. Victor is so consumed by breathless horror and disgust, he doesn't even pause. He just flees the laboratory.
He abandons his creation.
Instantly.
So Victor runs, but the reality he created is just beginning its own terrifying journey. We shift now to the monster's perspective.
Which is at first just a total confusion of sensory input. Imagine being a giant intellect just thrown into complete chaos.
He stumbles out, finds some of Victor's clothes, a jacket, and escapes into the rainy streets. He's basically a gigantic, sophisticated infant.
Right. He wanders alone, learning by pure instinct.
Wow.
And the sources detail his first crucial discovery: fire. He learns it provides both pleasure and pain.
A profound lesson right at the start.
And this leads him to find refuge in a little hovel attached to a cottage. And this cottage because his university. He starts observing the family inside, the DeLacys.
An impoverished but very kind family. There's the old blind man, Felix, and Agatha.
And this is where the narrative really expands. He's exposed to selfless love, to family. Then Felix's sweetheart, Safie, arrives, and Felix starts teaching her the local language.
And the monster, listening in secret with his sharp mind, he learns even faster than she does.
He starts synthesizing human society just by listening to Felix read from history books. He learns about wealth, poverty, rank, and morality. The sources say he even wept over the fate of the American Indians he heard about.
He desperately wants what they have, that connection. He thinks if he could just speak to them.
But this growing awareness is a double-edged sword. More knowledge leads directly to this profound, crushing self-recognition.
The moment he sees his own reflection in a pool of water.
And he's terrified by his own hideously deformed and loathsome image.
What's so fascinating is the intellectual framework he uses to process this. He immediately compares himself to Adam, perfect, loved.
And then, just as quickly, to Satan from Milton's Paradise Lost, the fallen angel, envious of everyone else's happiness.
That parallel becomes the core of his tragic identity.
And the final cruel truth comes when he finds Victor's journal, which was still in the jacket he took. He reads the disgusting details, the horror his own creator felt for him.
And that just cements his self-loathing. But he still tries one last time. He makes a rational appeal.
He introduces himself to the gentle, blind Mr. DeLacy, hoping the old man can't judge him by his appearance.
And he's welcomed warmly at first.
He is. But then the rest of the family returns, and the rejection is absolute. Agatha faints. Safie flees.
And Felix attacks him.
With brute force. And the monster, who could have easily overpowered them, just flees.
And that is the final straw. That rejection transforms his sorrow into immediate rage and revenge. His first act of true malice is to burn their cottage to the ground.
He declares war on mankind, but especially on the one who made him and then abandoned him. This philosophical shift, it just fuels everything that comes next.
He begins this brutal 4-month journey toward Geneva to find Victor, traveling only by night, sustained now only by hatred.
And that hatred is cemented by his very next human interaction. Near Switzerland, he sees a little girl fall into a river.
And in an act of pure benevolence, he saves her. He drags her to shore.
And his reward. Her male companion shows up, sees his deformed face, and immediately shoots him in the shoulder.
Unbelievable.
The monster later says this event confirmed the bitterness and horror of his feelings. The lesson is that even kindness will be met with violence.
So, arriving in Geneva, his revenge escalates, tragically. He runs into Victor's 5-year-old brother, William.
He hopes the boy is too young to judge. But William just screams, calls him an ugly monster, an ogre, and threatens to tell his powerful father.
And the monster, enraged, strangles him. He calls it an accident, but it's followed by this hellish triumph when he realizes he's finally heard his creator.
And the calculated malice that follows is just. It's truly wicked. He finds a locket on William's body with a painting of Victor's mother inside. He takes it and intentionally places it on a sleeping maid, Justine Moritz, framing her for the murder. He knows exactly what human law will do to her.
Meanwhile, Victor returns home and sees this gigantic figure during a storm on the mountainside. He knows instantly. He's convinced this creature is William's attacker.
And here we see Victor's great moral failure. He stays silent.
He's afraid.
He believes if he tells his story, everyone will think he's insane. So he prioritizes his own reputation over a human life. And the weight of that cowardice is just profound, especially when Justine is condemned.
And it gets worse. Justine, terrified by a priest's threats of eternal damnation, gives a false confession just before her execution.
And Victor knows the truth. His silence guarantees her death. It's the central tragedy of his moral bankruptcy.
Driven by this despair, Victor goes to the Alps, he climbs Montanvert, and this is where the confrontation finally happens, on a sea of ice.
The monster appears with superhuman speed, just bounding over these crevices to meet him.
And Victor just erupts, calling him devil, vile monster.
But the monster delivers this powerful defense of his existence. I am your creature. I ought to be your Adam, but instead I am the fallen angel whom you drive from joy.
He argues that Victor's abandonment, not his creation, was the original sin.
And then he delivers his shocking ultimatum. Victor must create a female companion equally as hideous as the first to share his exile in South America.
If Victor complies, he promises peace.
And Victor, terrified of more violence against his family and maybe recognizing a bit of justice in the monster's loneliness, he reluctantly agrees.
But agreeing is one thing, actually doing it is another. Victor delays, travels across Europe with his friend Henry Clerval.
Right, under the guise of research.
He eventually isolates himself on one of the desolate Orkney Islands, basically a rock, with 3 huts to begin creating the female.
And the first creation was done in this frenzy of passion. This second one is done in cold blood. His heart sickens at every step as he gathers bones and organs.
As the hideous female form starts taking shape, he's just overcome by this global risk assessment.
He realizes the risks are catastrophic. What if she refuses to go? What if they hate each other? Or worse.
They reproduce.
Exactly. Creating a race of devils that could threaten all of mankind. He fears being cursed by future generations for his selfishness.
And this realization happens at the absolute worst possible moment. He looks up
And sees the monster's ghastly face pressed against the laboratory window, grinning, there to mark my progress.
chilling.
And overcome by this vision of global destruction, Victor tears the half-finished female creation to pieces.
The monster lets out this sound of devilish despair and revenge, and when Victor refuses to start again, the monster makes his vow, I shall be with you on your wedding night.
And crucially, Victor completely misinterprets this. He thinks the threat is against his own life.
He thinks the monster is coming for him.
Exactly. And the vengeance is swift. Victor discards the remains at sea, gets blown off course to Ireland, and is immediately accused of murder.
He's brought before a magistrate, Kerwin, and he finds the body of his dearest friend, Henry Clerval, strangled. The monster's signature finger marks are on his neck.
Victor just collapses into a fever for 2 months.
He recovers, returns to Geneva, and rushes his marriage to Elizabeth, still believing his own death will end all this malice.
On their wedding night at Evian, he is patrolling the halls, armed, expecting the monster to attack him.
And that's when he hears it, a shrill and dreadful scream.
He rushes upstairs to find Elizabeth murdered, thrown across their bridal bed. He looks up and sees the monster grinning at the open window.
The true meaning of the threat is revealed.
The monster didn't want Victor's death. He wanted his complete and total emotional ruin. And shortly after, Victor's father dies of grief, completing the systematic destruction of his family.
He's now consumed by this devouring and only passion of revenge. He tries to tell the authorities, a magistrate Zucker, the whole unbelievable story.
But Zucker just politely dismisses it as the ravings of insanity. Victor is left completely alone to pursue the fiend.
And so the Arctic pursuit begins. Victor chases the monster across Europe, through the wilds of Russia, all the way to the North Pole.
The monster eventually leaves him taunting messages cut into stone or bark. Things like, my reign is not yet over, follow me.
It's a game to him.
It is. Victor suffers extreme cold, hunger, exhaustion, obsessed only with the chase, which finally ends when he's rescued barely alive by Captain Walton's scientific expedition ship.
And there, he recounts his history and gives his dying advice to Walton. Avoid the madness of ambition and destroy the monster.
After Victor dies, the monster appears over the corpse.
Mm.
Captain Walton witnesses this complex final monologue. The monster shows remorse for Clerval and the others, but he says Victor did not suffer 1,000th of the agony that I suffered performing those hellish deeds.
He admits the murders were acts of frightful selfishness, but that they didn't bring him any satisfaction.
Right. He fully acknowledges his own wickedness. He says the fallen angel becomes a devil. He owns it.
And this leads to the ultimate heartbreaking twist. The monster states his final plan. He's going to travel to the most northern place of the globe, build a funeral pyre.
And throw himself upon it, to be utterly consumed by fire.
Why?
The reason is profound. He does it so that no man, seeing my remains, can learn from them how to construct another such as I. His final act is a sacrifice.
To protect humanity.
To prevent Victor's unhallowed arts from continuing. His rage was driven by being denied connection, but his last choice is this grand, selfless act to protect the very race that rejected him. It's the ultimate rejection of the dark power Victor gave him.
Which leaves you with this provocative thought to take away. Considering the monster's profound self-loathing, the systematic malice he inflicted on Victor, and his final, deliberate choice to prevent the continuation of the unhallowed arts, was his act of ultimate self-destruction, his first and last truly virtuous deed.